Hi guys, Sam here with today's thought for the day. And last week we were thinking about the Great Commission where Jesus tells his disciples to be his messengers and take his message and his love to Jerusalem and Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth. And last week we were thinking about how Jerusalem and Judea represented the people who the disciples knew, the culture they were familiar with, the people who they were familiar with. It was kind of fairly comfortable, really. And then Samaria was a place that they didn't like. You hear the story of the Good Samaritan and what makes that story so surprising to the people at the time is that the Samaritan, who would have hated the Jews and the Jews would have hated him, was the one who helped. And today I wanted us to think about the ends of the earth and what that might mean for us. And if you actually look through the rest of the book of Acts after Jesus shares this with his disciples and goes back to heaven, what you start to see happen is that exactly what Jesus tells the disciples to do begins to take place. And they do go to Jerusalem and Judea, and they spread out across Jerusalem and Judea to share Jesus' message, and then through Samaria, and then they start to spread out to other far-flung places. And it always makes me think of an old TV show that you've probably never seen called Dad's Army. Maybe if you're my age or a bit older, you might have seen it. But the intro card for Dad's Army, it's all about the Second World War, and it shows a picture of a map with these arrows that represent the Nazis spreading across Europe from Germany. And that kind of represented the invasion really that took place. And what they invaded countries with was a message of hatred and a message of this kind of racism against various different groups. And they used tanks and bombs, but what happens through Acts is similar, except that what the disciples are sharing isn't a message of hatred, but a message of love and a message of peace and acceptance and forgiveness that Jesus brought. And I think that's really important for us to share as well. And maybe there's a particular place, a particular country that God wants to put on your heart. Or maybe it's our own country, but just a different part of our country, or even the same part of our country. You know, God calls us all to different things. I remember when I was a lot younger, someone who I respected gave me a prophecy, which is like a message from God, and he said that he saw me as being kind of like a ship, and that God was going to take me through a season of building up the keel, which is the part of the boat that goes underwater, and he was going to build up my foundations, and then he was going to take me and use me to share his message with others. And little did I know that the place that God would take me to share his message and his love with people was Alsager here in the UK. But there you go, God can surprise all of us. But maybe there's a place that God wants to use you, and maybe it's where you are right now, or maybe it's somewhere else. And it might be difficult to think about how we can share Jesus' love with other people from other countries or other locations when we're isolated at the moment. But there are still important things we can do. And I think the most important thing we can do for any country or any people group is to pray. So maybe you can spend some time this week praying for people from another country. Or maybe you can find a charity who are doing some important work there and send them some money, or just research what they're doing and pray more specifically. Or perhaps you could even think about in the future how God might want to use you in a place like that. So I'd encourage you to think about that this week, and you can join me again on Wednesday for the next thought for the day. And remember to subscribe if you want to keep seeing these, and let me know what you think. Thanks guys, bye.